It feels crazy to have a game for 8 years and yet there are no videos that explain something as simple as patterns. I'm making this video because patterns are dumb and ambiguous and I want a more standard way of comparing maps. And while I think that's kinda true, the main reason I'm making this video is because I'm tired to explain to new players what each pattern is. For this video, I'll be explaining the patterns on Favori's website, since it is the website that hosts all the new customs. Also, I'm either too dumb to understand something as simple as patterns while having years of playing the game, or the concept of patterns themselves are so confusing that no one can reach a proper conclusion. As you can see in the image, there are a lot of patterns that I personally consider the same thing, or that I simply have no idea what they are. So I'm likely not the best person to explain patterns. While I'm basing myself on the definitions I came across while playing the game, people like Dive have their own definitions that I think are still ambiguous, especially when you compare maps on the go. That said, he's a great mapper and I'm not. He's definitely the trusted source here, and I'm the one oversimplifying it. Streams are a bunch of squares that follow subsequently from each other. By the way, stream is the new gen way of calling those. The normal way of calling them is spirals. And most people will understand you when you say streams, but old players that don't play Osu might not. At the end of the day, they're all the same thing, and the exact terminology does not matter. That is, unless you call this pattern spins, because spin is a camera lock mode and not always a pattern. There are spin patterns which are spirals that go either clockwise or counterclockwise, avoiding the middle of the screen, but the general pattern should not be called a spin. A spiral slop, on the other hand, is the name of the maps where it looks like the mapper didn't know exactly what to put in a certain section, so he just spams spirals without care. They're usually not out of place, but there are so many spirals that you go out of the map asking yourself what did you do to deserve that? There are people that like spiral slops and people who hate them, and most costumes are spiral slops. Some examples of streams are BPMRT and Cute Mac Mac Funk, or however their song is called. On Fawar's website, there is a separation between walls and bursts, but I genuinely do not know the difference between those, so I'll just throw them into one category as the same thing. Bursts are not about the shape or the order of the notes, it is about the space and interval between them. Bursts are too fast for you to read them, and so you need to have some time between the bursts so that you can read and then blindly follow what you managed to read in the interval of time the song gave you. Usually, bursts use slides, but there are also jump bursts. There are maps like Vasa that are between bursts and spirals, since spacing appears lots of times, but they are super short. As I said before, patterns are super ambiguous and dumb, so don't get too caught up at them. Some examples of slide bursts is Dead 13th and Vasa, and some examples of jump bursts are Ether Forest and the Start of Arabic Connection, or Terabyte Connection if you want to nerd out about the name of the songs. Tag is also a pattern that repeats on Fawor's website. And again, I can't tell the difference between tag and unconventional. Tag maps are the ones that are not in any other pattern, or patterns that look super weird. Another way of describing them is a pattern that requires either a technical control or technical read in order to pass. People usually hate tags, and they're a big gamble. Some are super cool and others are ew. Examples of tag maps can be that one costume from Along the Mystic Lands. If you don't know the costume, it will be in the description. An African tribe. Though I'm pretty sure African tribe is closer to a troll map than a tag map, but I think it's a good example. Jumps are the base pattern of the game, and they are nodes that avoid the middle of the screen and are never connected to each other. It is the most simple pattern of the game and are also the most versatile one. Its apparition can range from a full-on stamina map to a singular note in the middle of a burst. Within a jump, I also want to include both stamina and jump slide maps. Stamina are the maps that have long drops, and they are usually either jumps or some pattern that include jumps. And jump slides are jump with slides in the middle. I mean, what did you expect? An example for stamina can be 99% of Psycho Fevereiro custom maps. And as a jump slide example, I'll put Hydrosonic Extratone from Rithia. And as a normal jump example, I can give Beat That Soft Hikishi BRR. I will assume that you have played the game if you're watching this, and if you have, you will be able to identify quantum maps really easily. You know how the maps are always on a 3x3 grid? If the nodes are not on that 3x3 grid, then the map is quantum. And if they are, the map isn't quantum. It's important to mention that quantum is not a standalone pattern, it is an attribute to another pattern. So there are quantum jumps, quantum slides, quantum spirals, and so on. Also, if the nodes are perfectly within the grid, but they are smaller, that also counts as quantum. And using modifiers like hard mode to make squares smaller do not make the map change its pattern. Some examples of quantum maps are amnesia, alexithymia, and hydrangea. This is the part in the Farore's list that I got super confused on how dumb I am or how patterns don't make any sense. Because I have no idea what timing is. I mean, I do know what it is, but it could fall under so many categories. It could be a tag with weird timings, or a quantum slide with difficult timing, or a timing on a vibro. I feel like there are too many situations within all patterns where timing is more important than knowing the pattern itself. And that's why I think this category is super confusing. It could be a part of any other pattern, so I don't know how to categorize it. Well, I may not know what timing is, but I do know what stacked patterns are. And they are kind of like quantum. They are never standalone patterns, they are always a part of another pattern. And that is when nodes are on top of each other, making your timing and control way harder. Getting a good accuracy in this type of map is super hard. An example of a stacked map is venturing into the unknown. Slides are one of the most common, most ambiguous patterns on the list. I need a diagram to explain this one, but in words, slides are nodes connected to one another that aren't big enough to be considered a spiral. This diagram shows the most common slides. Those include vertical, horizontal, broken, L-shaped, and U-shaped slides. Slides can be a standalone pattern, but they usually aren't. It is usually used on bursts or jumps. An example of a standalone slide map is Sonic Blaster, and an example of burst slide map would be Dead 13th. Though the type of slide used in Dead 13th and most burst maps are called a semi-spiral, which can be counted either as a slide or as a spiral. There are also vibros, and those are the up and down patterns that you need to shake your mouse just to get them. I think they are separated into two main categories, which are stable vibros and jump vibros. Stable is up and down forever, and jump vibro are still up and down, but they're slightly changing position. Note that when I say up and down, I mean repeated motion. That can be up and down, left and right, or diagonal motion. And as crazy as it may seem, standard spirals and star jumps are not considered vibrals because they are repeated patterns, but they are also too long to be considered a vibral. One example of a stable vibro is Lovesick Logic, and one example of jump vibro is the Impaler. I could go into further detail on the patterns. For an example, I could explain what star jumps are, or what a standard spiral is, or what an end spiral is, but I decided just to go with a basic overview, because you'll likely forget those names anyway. The truth is, you learn the name of the patterns through experience and not through a video, but if anyone asks you what a jump is, you can just send them this video. If you watched until here, please consider liking and subscribing as I'll be making more SoundSpace content. I also need to thank Norm who helped me pick the songs for the examples, asked Paul directly about the difference between patterns, reminded me about the Dive Challenge pattern description, and recorded all the demonstration clips you just saw. Paul's website as well as the Dive Challenge spreadsheet will be in the description. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day and I'll see you in the next video.